Access to food stamps. Barrier. The federal welfare law imposes a lifetime ban on anyone convicted of a drug-related felony from receiving federally funded food stamps and cash assistance, which is TANF. The law gives states the option of passing legislation to limit the ban or eliminate it altogether. Recommendation. Enact a comprehensive reform of food stamps and TANFs in Georgia, including but not limited to more vigorous enforcements against fraud, waste, and abuse. As part of that comprehensive reform, consider lifting the ban on food stamps and cash assistance for ex-offenders who have received and continue to hold a certificate of program completion issued by the Department of Corrections. See below. We talk about that certificate in the employment piece. And systematically demonstrate successful probation or parole supervision. An appropriate auditing method for judges, probation and parole officers in the Department of Corrections must be in place so that bans can be reinstated if these conditions are not met. Everybody okay with that? Any opposition, edits?
Have you done any research into the federal law that you can waive the ban and yet then impose it back?
Yes. It's in the discretion of the states.
Hey, Thomas, this is Bill Cowsert. I'm on the phone.
Yes, sir.
We passed a bill, not this past session, but the one before, that prohibited the payment of certain government benefits to anybody that tested positive on drugs or whatever. I don't think that Governor Dill implemented that. It was waiting on a legal challenge. How does that tie in with this?
That is not related to ex-offenders. And so that bill was similar to that in Florida, and the 11th Circuit overturned that random drug testing bill, and so we're still waiting on legal guidance from the appellate courts, but that has nothing to do with ex-offenders. We're only talking about ex-offenders here.
Okay. I just want to be able to sell this in the Senate if need be.
Right.
And I think if anybody's on probation, they're subject to random drug and alcohol screening anyway.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
They could revoke that probation or that certificate you're talking about if they were continuing to use drugs.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And that's why I think that the discretion of a probation or parole officer in the department to revoke that immediately is necessary.
Thomas, I was just going to say, demonstrate successful compliance with probation or parole supervision. You're going to have people that are on probation that
Compliance with?
you want to make sure they're complying with probation. And then when it says an appropriate auditing method for judges, probation and parole officers, I think we just need to work on the wording there. Judges don't audit. I mean, there needs to be an appropriate method for probation corrections to monitor their compliance, and a method for a judge to revoke the exemption, or does that make sense?
Sure.
There needs to be a way that they can monitor and then bring it back for the judge to have it revoked if they're not compliant.
Right.
It's like a probation revocation.
Right, okay. So mirror probation revocation process. Parole and probation verification process?
I think it's kind of broad and let the legislature figure out how they actually do that.
Right. Okay.
Kind of as a statistical issue on this, on that last line that you were talking about, we're going to collaborate, I would assume, with DHS as far as the TANF usage that may come into play.
I think that's in the purview of the legislature.
Okay.
And frankly, just in the spirit of consensus building, I think the expectation is any bill is passed unanimously, like the remainder ones, the other ones are. And to Senator Cowsert's point, I don't think that you're going to get unanimous agreement in the legislature to pass the lifting of the ban side without undergoing a comprehensive reform on usage, fraud, and abuse, and those side of things. Something which, frankly, from my friends in the prosecution community and And other places have told me, you know, Chuck, that hadn't happened in what, 30 years? Okay, so I mean, I think it's safe to say that cash assistance and food stamps and TANF reform is needed.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the role of this council. I think the role of this council is suggesting that as part of this reform that the legislature should undertake, we ought to consider lifting that lifetime ban for individuals who exhibit the fact that they, you know, are serious about reentering society and meeting the conditions placed on them.
Yeah, and I agree with what our role is here. My concern or my suggestion was, you know, if we're opening this up or suggesting this, making a recommendation, and it is accepted and reduced, and they are gaining access back to it, it would give us some kind of a statistical return on what percentage we're actually taking advantage of that opportunity.
Sure.
Once, you know,
Right.
once they do have it.
Which I
access
think
to it.
within, and that's precisely the role of, you know, this PRI framework and tracking those performance measures and data points to make sure that all of this is successful. Paul?
It worries me a little bit that we're asking for the enactment of comprehensive reform for food stamps and TANF. When the council has only looked at this little small issue, I don't know what comprehensive reform of food stamps and TANF is. I could understand if we were looking at all the fraud issues with respect to that. That seems to be related to the topic. But if you're looking at benefit levels and programming and financing and all the, it seems like to me we're recommending something that we haven't, as a council, worked on much and that isn't necessarily related to criminal justice reform.
Well, just to be blunt, I think to reach consensus on it and to get my vote on it, I think that lifting the ban has to be coupled with something else. I don't think that lifting the ban alone is probably reckless.
Could it be, I thought that what we would couple it with was to look at the fraud and abuse issues with respect to these programs, rather than the comprehensive nature of the programs themselves.
So we say on the recommendation, if the legislature chooses to enact comprehensive reform of food stamps, the council recommends that they include comprehensive, or they include more vigorous enforcement of fraud and abuse and a comprehensive reform of the lifetime thing.
I'm okay with that.
Just if you do this, you ought to consider these things
All right.
instead of saying, we want you to do this.
Great. Everybody all right with that? Everybody supportive of that going into the report?
I am.